You're very welcome back now. Just a few weeks ago, terms like social distancing and self-isolation were largely unheard of, but how quickly things have changed.
Yeah, and kids ask a lot of questions at the best of times, and right now they are understandably, well, they've got plenty of them about coronavirus. And this morning we want to give the kids and young people a chance to ask their questions about the virus.
Lots of you have been getting in touch with your questions, and we've invited Dr. Matt O'Toole back to answer those questions. You're very welcome, Doctor.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much for coming back in. I know it's a crazy time for you. How are things on the front line at the moment?
Yeah, so I suppose we're starting to see the surge now. You know, we're starting to see the large number of cases who are contacting GPs and presenting to the hospitals. We know we've over 50 people in intensive care now, and we know that a quarter of all positive cases have been in healthcare workers. So I have colleagues now who have tested positive for COVID-19, and as you know, last night we had our first healthcare worker confirmed die because of COVID-19, and that has hit home for a lot of healthcare workers. So they're tough times, but they're an incredible group of people. They're rising to the challenge, and they will work night and day until we get through this.
Amazing.
Incredible.
Well, we go to the first question,
yes,
because lots of children and adults have been in touch, so we'll try and get through as many as we can. The first question is from Harrison O'Reilly, who's 6, from County Wicklow.
Why do I have to wash my hands so often?
Now,
him and every other child in the country have asked that several times.
So it's a good question. So the reason why you have to wash your hands so often, Harrison, is because we know that the virus can actually live on surfaces for up to 5 days now. So it can live for up to 5 days on stainless steel, 3 days on plastic, and 24 hours on cardboard. So basically, if somebody who has COVID-19, they may not know they have it. If they aren't washing their hands adequately and they touch a surface, then they're depositing or leaving traces of COVID-19 on that surface. And then if somebody comes along and then they touch that surface, then they have COVID-19 in their hands. And the way that you'll infect yourself is by touching your mouth or your eyes. So if you're constantly washing your hands and not touching your face, you're reducing the risk of, first of all, spreading it, but also getting it. So that's why you have to wash your hands very frequently.
And what are those times again in terms of surfaces?
So basically, stainless steel up to 5 days, plastic up to 3 days, and cardboard up to 24 hours. So what I'm saying to people now is assume that it can survive on all surfaces for up to 5 days. So wash your hands well for 30 seconds, wash them often, and any time you touch a surface.
Okay, great question, Harrison. Next question, Matt, is from 9-year-old Ryan from Dublin.
Hi, I'm Ryan, and I was wondering about the coronavirus. If we still have bats flying around, are we ever going to stop that virus?
Well, there's an interesting question.
I've heard that question at home as well.
Yeah, so that's a good question. So I suppose the good news is that you can't get coronavirus from bats. And I've been asked that by a few kids, actually. So the reason why I suppose that has got into the media is we know that the coronavirus originated in bats in China. But the way that the original case, so X case, the first person that got coronavirus actually got coronavirus was they ate undercooked or raw bat, and the virus mutated or changed in that person. So that's exceedingly rare. So my advice would be, number one, you cannot get coronavirus from bats if they're flying around you. And two, Irish people don't generally eat bats, but to avoid eating bats, which is obviously no one does that anyway. But the answer to that question is you cannot get coronavirus from bats.
From bats.
Basically.
Great.
That's comforting.
Good.
Another good question from 6-year-old Anna Birchall from Kildare.
Are there any children in the hospital with coronavirus? How many?
Oh, that breaks my heart.
Yeah, so I suppose there's very little good news about COVID-19, but one of the things we know about COVID-19 is that it really doesn't affect children, and when it does, it's very mild. So we know that less than 1% of all cases of COVID-19 are in kids under the age of 15, and children in hospital make up less than 1% of all cases of COVID-19. So I suppose the answer to that question is it's really, really rare that children end up going to hospital because of COVID-19. They've actually closed down the paediatric unit in Tallaght and have turned that into an adult centre because, as we know, children, when they get COVID-19, in the majority of cases, they might not have any symptoms at all. So it's really, really unusual that children end up in hospital from COVID-19.
Amazing.
Okay, good.
That's comforting for her to hear, isn't it?
It is, yeah, great question. Louis Buckley, who's 6 years old, from Laois, wants to ask you this, Matt.
Will the coronavirus be gone?
That's a really good question. So when will the
virus be gone?
Yeah, when is it going to go?
Yeah.
Please tell us, we all want to know that.
Okay, so just as of yesterday, we know the answer to this question depends on physical distancing or social distancing. So if 90% of us strictly adhere to physical distancing, the coronavirus will be controlled in terms of its spread in the next 3 months. If 80% of it adhere to it, then it'll be controlled within the next 4 months. But if 70% of us or less adhere to physical distancing, then we won't be able to control the spread of coronavirus until we get a treatment or a vaccine. So the answer to that question is, it actually lies in our hands. So the more of us that strictly adhere to physical distancing, the quicker that this coronavirus will be gone. And there's stark
that's
figures.
so powerful, isn't it? That's not an answer for a child, it's an answer for everybody.
Yeah, that is the truth of it.
Yeah.
It's up to us.
It's up to us.
Fiach Buckley from Laois, who's 5 years old, wants to ask this question, Matt.
How much people have coronavirus?
How much?
How much what? We might have that again, can we, lads?
How much people have coronavirus?
How
much people have coronavirus?
So as of this morning, we know that about 590,000 people in the world have coronavirus. And in Ireland, that figure is 2,121 as of yesterday. So a lot of people in Ireland have coronavirus at the moment. And a lot of people around the world have coronavirus at the moment. And that number will rise. So again, the figure in Ireland is 2,121 people as of this morning.
Wow. The next one is from Emily, who's 10 in Cove. And she's asking another question that lots of children would have asked over the last few weeks as well. I don't want my granny and granddad to get sick. How can I make sure they're okay?
Yeah, and that's really important. And I'm getting asked that every day by kids that I'm seeing in surgery at the moment. And so as of yesterday, so last night, granny and granddad are going to be doing something called cocooning, which means they're going to be staying at home and not leaving the house for the next 2 weeks. So the single most important thing that all the children in Ireland can do is, first of all, not to visit granny and granddad, but actually to contact them more than ever. So Skype them, FaceTime them, WhatsApp them, play games with them on Skype, literally to contact them as much as possible without physically getting in touch with them, because they will be lonely, you know, in their house. So what you can do to support them is to contact them as much as possible. So Skype them, FaceTime them, WhatsApp them, whatever you can. And to ensure that other people help them. So you can help mom and dad, for example, to buy them shopping and leave the shopping outside. But the most important thing at the moment is not to visit granny and granddad,
and
because
that's
we're trying to keep them safe. Yeah, but check in on them as much as you can.
Daniel, who's 6 from Galway, Matt, wants to know. He says, I have a runny nose. Do I have coronavirus?
Yes, this is another common we're getting. So the symptoms of coronavirus are, the commonest ones are a fever, cough and shortness of breath. But flu-like symptoms, which can be aches and pains and sometimes a runny nose, could potentially mean that you have coronavirus. So it's not the most common of symptoms, but the answer to that is maybe. And the advice that we're giving to children and adults is, if you have any symptoms at all at the moment that could potentially indicate that you have coronavirus, the first thing to do is to self-isolate, and that means basically to stay at home. And the second thing is to get mom or dad to call your GP, and your GP will give you more advice, and we'll take it from there.
Of all the cases, I'm jumping off the script here for a second, Matt, but of all the cases that you've seen, the positive cases, did they start with one particular symptom? Does it start in order? Yeah,
so I suppose we have really good data on this from Wuhan. So, and the people that I have in my practice that I have referred for testing that have come back positive have had a fever, have had cough, and have had shortness of breath. And the shortness of breath is the best indicator of how unwell somebody is. But we know of many cases, many high-profile cases, like, for example, Claire Byrne, who very bravely came out and spoke about her case, and she didn't have a fever. So, you know, you can have very mild symptoms, but those that I have, in my personal experience, and the majority of people that we're seeing, they do have the classical symptoms of a fever, which is the commonest, cough and shortness of breath. But, you know, there are a lot of other symptoms as well, and that's why we're saying, if you have any symptoms or concerns, the safest thing you can do is assume you have it, self-isolate, and ring your GP.
Well, listen, we really appreciate you coming in this morning, and I know that yesterday was tough for the health workers out there, but just so you guys know that we are all behind you, and we're really appreciative of what you guys are doing, because what you're being asked to do is beyond the call, but you're answering it.
You're doing it,
we're behind you, so thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
Right, still to come, comedian Eric Lawler tells us why he's pulling out all the stops for the country's health workers. And we catch up with the great people at Blood Bikes, the voluntary organisation that's never been as vital to the country's well-being. See you soon.
I'm on self-isolation here with Gucci, and we're doing all right. As you know, I wouldn't be on the right age bracket for this virus, and indeed my lungs aren't in great shape after all the damage I've done to them. So can I please implore of you to keep your distance and, as they say, play your part, please stay apart.
Social distancing is important to help slow the spread of coronavirus.
It does this by minimising contact between potentially infected individuals and healthy individuals.
Please keep a space of 2 metres between you and other people.
Coronavirus is spread in sneeze or cough droplets.
To infect you, it has to get from an infected person's nose or mouth into your eyes, nose or mouth.
This can be direct or indirect.
And on hands, objects or surfaces.
Remember, 2 metres apart, no close contact, and wash your hands.
I am social distancing.